edition of Let's Talk Money with Wendy Silevi. Before we get into the business of today, please help me grow this platform by subscribing and also liking the page. Share with your family and friends so that we can spread this financial wealth that we are unpacking here. So my guest for today is none other than Gugu Sidaki. Hi, Gugu.
Hello, Wendy.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So just as a form of introduction, Gugu is a certified financial planner, director and co-founder of Wealth Creed Legacy Makers. In terms of her academia, she's got a Bachelor of Commerce, an honors in investment management, and a postgraduate diploma in financial planning. So we really here have someone who is qualified for the conversation that we are having today. And today we're really going to be talking about financial planning, all things financial planning. So Gugu, are you well?
I am, thank you.
That's
I can
good.
see you look well.
I do, I am. So maybe I'd like you to just introduce yourself further than what I have said, and you can just share as much or as little as you'd like.
No problem. I think my most important duty is I'm a mom. I've got 2 young children who keep me very busy, and in fact they are the inspiration and the oomph behind everything that I do. I'm a wife. I am an avid hiker.
You hike?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do. It's a recent thing. It's almost going on to 2 years now. It's something that I've discovered and absolutely love. And I'm a lover of the arts. So everything artistic, music, painting, all of that is something that gives me a lot of energy and inspiration. So when I'm not working, when I'm not mothering and all of those things, I'm trying to consume as much of the arts as possible.
Awesome. Well, just for those who don't know, I met Gugu through one of the ladies that I know, that I mentor and coach, and then she introduced me to this powerhouse, and as they say, the rest is history, right? Yeah. So, I mean, Gugu, usually we like to say, ebantwini, you must invest with a certified, not just any financial planner, but a certified financial planner. So how does one go about looking? What are the things that you need to look out for to make sure I'm investing my money with the right person? What credentials should you be looking for? Or what registration should they have? Or where should you go?
Yeah. So our industry is regulated by the FSCA, so the Financial Services Conduct Authority. So that's always the starting point. They set the tone for the bare minimum. Okay. So on their website, they will tell you exactly what the bare minimum is in terms of qualification and experience. The next level to that is whoever it is that is dispensing financial advice needs to be registered with the FSCA. So there's a license number that you get, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to belong to an individual, but to an organization that is given permission to dispense financial advice. So when you're dealing with a person, it's important for you to know that your person belongs to an organization or institution that is authorized by the FSCA. So there's a license number that you can link them to. And what that does is it protects you as the consumer, as the potential investor, because sometimes things do go wrong. For whatever reason, and if your advisor is found to be negligent, you have recourse, right? There's specific steps that you can take in order to make sure that you are put back in the right. So you start with a complaint, and then it escalates, and then eventually, if it is found that your person was negligent or didn't act in good faith, then you are they're liable to pay back your money. So now, if you're dealing with just anybody, that falls out the window, because firstly, who's this person? How can they be traced? And number 2, there's no insurance. There's no requisite insurance that'll ensure that you're put back in the right. So it's important for you to deal with somebody who's licensed and credible and is known in the industry by the FSCA. That's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And then you can go further and interrogate your advisors' credentials and their experience and what they actually specialize in. So it's not a requirement for advisors to be certified financial planners, but it is recommended that they are. So the FSCA doesn't say you have to be a CFP, but it is recommended that you are.
So, I mean, I do financial literacy.
Yes.
I cannot go out there and pose and say to people, I'm giving advice, because you need to have certain legal or requirements for you to be able to give advice.
Absolutely.
And that is why I bring experts here, so that they can give the advice, because I'm not a qualified, certified planner, and I think that's very, very important.
That's such an important detail point, because we see it a lot happening and people don't realize that they're in breach of the law by, just me telling you to go buy a specific share because I think it's a good idea means I'm in breach of the law, because I'm giving you financial advice, and not just anybody can give financial advice. And you see it all the time on social media. You see it all the time on WhatsApp groups, for example, where people are just casually, giving financial advice, and they're not really allowed to.
Yeah, on TikTok, everywhere. I look at it and I'm thinking, I should be very careful as well, on this podcast, not to give advice, and I'd rather have the people that have those qualifications give, because finances are very, very important.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Gugu, you're also an author of children's books and on financial literacy. So I'd like for you please to share with us why you wrote the books and why you chose children, for them to be equipped with financial literacy and not write a book for adults and etc.
So at Wealth Create, which is my 9 to 5, we host quite a few financial literacy sessions. And in every single one of those sessions, at the end of that session, when we ask for feedback, our attendees always say to me, sure, I really wish this information was available to me when I was younger, because I probably would have made different financial choices. And that kept coming through over and over again. In fact, a couple of the people who had attended our sessions have requested for us to make this information available to their children. And that's literally what inspired the books. And then I went down this rabbit hole of understanding how to write books for children and why it's important to teach children about personal finances. And the facts are, like your personality, your financial habits are set by the time you're 7. So it means all the things that you're learning prior to age 7, and it's not formed, right? Children learn by seeing and hearing what adults do. By the time you're 7, a lot of your financial habits are set. So you can imagine, and parents are not aware, adults are not aware that they're impacting children and their financial behavior at such a young age. And so accessing children's financial behavior, or understanding their financial behavior prior to age 7, is really, really crucial, and that's what the books are about. So they're suitable from ages 4 to 12. And so, and ultimately, look, it's not a blueprint, but the idea is to create an awareness to adults to say, what you think, what you say, and the messaging to children when it comes to matters of personal finance is important, and it's just an awareness that we create, and a conversation starter.
Wow,
yeah,
that's awesome, eh? Isn't it amazing that as parents we go about talking, doing things, and we are not aware that we are already influencing our kids' behavior towards money. So by the time they reach 7, you say they already set, they already have an idea about financial literacy. So money doesn't grow on trees.
I'm so broke. We don't have enough money. These statements that you don't take very seriously. And when you take them to the shops and they, how it is, they point and eventually give in. It says something to them. Oh, okay, every time I cry, I throw a tantrum, I'll get something. Absolutely. And then you become that type of adult with your own money. And we know a lot of people have very unhealthy relationship, a very unhealthy relationship with money, and it starts from that.
Wow, that's awesome, because in some of the podcasts that I've done, we in episode 3, to be specific, we spoke about money archetypes, the relationship you have with money, and we do mention, it starts from your background, where you grew up, your context, but you've just also shed some light, as kids, we are shaped, our behavior is shaped at that early age. So parents that are watching just need to be cautious of how they are engaging around money and the things that they do. As they say, ligotsha lisemali, and that's how we then begin to instill even the wrong things.
Yeah.
So we have an opportunity to instill
Yeah.
the right financial literacy principles to the kids so that they grow up, being confident and having the right information. It's amazing. As Tina, we were not taught about these things.
I was going to say that. I was going to say, a big part of this journey is also learning that there's so much shame attached to this lack of information when it comes to personal finances. And I always have to remind people that you didn't know any better, so don't feel bad. And the point of this is to create the awareness so that you don't then create that kind of child in the future who's going to be that kind of an adult in the future.
Yeah. And I also always say to people, the day that you find out, some enlightening, empowering information about financial literacy, about investing and saving, don't have shame. I wasted 10 years doing the wrong things. It's part of your journey. Now that you found out today, what matters is after you've heard it, what are you going to do? So anyway, Wealth Creed, I always tell people when I chat to them, you focus a lot on women. It doesn't mean men exclusively are excluded, but the focus is the kulu on women. And I want to believe you focus on women a lot because when you look at research, research tells us, if you look at men and women live much longer than their male counterparts post-retirement. But women can live up to 20 years and more. So what that means is that women, outlive their spouses. So in their retirement stages or even before, they are already single. So they're going to live the rest of, almost 20 years single. And as a single parent looking after kids, we know what life, the way in Akwana, sometimes your kids, parents are bearing their kids. So you find that as an elderly woman, you're now single, you're looking after even your grandchildren. So it means that you have to be prudent about how you invest your money. And also, women earn less. But research says about 33% less than their male counterparts. So already you earn less, you're going to live longer, and you might have more to do. Is that why, you focus on women? And maybe share with us, Uguti, how then should women be thinking strategically about investing for their future?
That's exactly that. Those statistics are spot on. I'd like to add a few others. There's a higher chance of women being caregivers. So looking after an elderly parent, is a very common thing, and women assume that role more than men. That has a devastating effect on your income, right? And another thing is we, as you said, we tend to live longer. There's a higher chance of you being single, and there's a higher chance of you being a single parent even prior to retirement, by the way. So all of those things. And then the last thing is we tend to invest less. And when we do invest, we assume less risk. And there's a number of reasons behind that. So all of that is a very, very scary cocktail that renders women financially incapacitated in retirement. And that's exactly why we decided to focus on women when we founded the business. And for me, for the most part, is in the previous institutions that I worked for, I didn't see many women who looked like me, who came to seek financial advice. And I've always wondered where they go, if at all. And a lot of the conversations that I have with women is they don't feel heard in a lot of these institutions that they go to, if they do go to seek financial advice. So it was important to create a platform and a business and an institution that would be welcoming and to give women the right kind of advice, because a lot of the research that's out there as well, even when women do seek financial advice, they don't get the right kind of advice, because so often we get relegated to the side when it comes to more risky assets like your equities and your properties. Women, if you look at a lot of the research, they'll tell you that my advisor said to me, I must put my money in a money market account, which is such a huge injustice. And so our business focuses on women for that reason, to empower, to educate, and to change the financial reality of women in the future.
There you have it. Wealth Creed is for you ladies and gents, by the way. But I think what we, as Gugu has explained, we really would like women to be empowered, to be able to diversify, to be able to not be too risk averse, you know. Yeah, we still need to be risk averse, but still diversify and invest in other financial instruments. I mean, as you say, most people, if you ask them about investments, a fixed deposit and a money market, and then the rest of the asset classes are excluded. So I want to encourage those that are looking at their finances, that are ladies, to really contact you and just have those conversations, around how they can maximize, with the little that they get. It's not about how much you get, actually. It's how much prudence you add onto the little that you receive. And what I like is that you are diversifying as well. We're not just talking about diversified investment portfolios, but as a business, you are also diversifying. You are now focusing on small businesses. I don't know if it's small and medium businesses. You tell us in helping them, those entrepreneurs to invest and grow their wealth in their businesses. Because, also research also says that, and 1 in 5 or 3 in 5 businesses fail because of cash flow, and they don't have enough invested. So it's from hand to mouth, and then before you know it, the business has gone down. So maybe let's talk about thriving for business, which is thriving in business, which is what you're launching now in Feb, and why you've decided to look at businesses.
Much like advising women or focusing on women, I think focusing on SMEs is also a personal thing. Being an entrepreneur and having been on this journey for going on 6 years now, there are a lot of learnings. And so I think knowing quite a lot of entrepreneurs as well has made this an important aspect of my business. And it's important for us to state that we're not an accounting business, so we're not going to be looking at what's coming in and what's coming out. But what we're more interested in is how we can help entrepreneurs create an asset base outside of their business. Because ultimately that's what you need to be doing, right? Create a business that's going to help you create other assets. And I think that's what we do best, helping individuals to invest. So use your business to invest outside of your business. And that's a form of risk management. And number two, I know so many entrepreneurs who don't think about the longevity of their businesses. They're so focused on the here and the now, on the cash flow and making money right now, but they don't think of what's going to happen when I turn 60 or when I pass away, And I mean, my father was an entrepreneur, and when I think about how he ran his business back in the day, I don't think that was part of the thinking. He was making money, it was a thriving business and all of those things, but I don't think the longevity of the business and who's going to take over it in the long run was part of his thinking process. And so we're wanting to elevate conversations for entrepreneurs around those two aspects. And then thirdly, I think, again, being an entrepreneur, I understand how hard this journey can be on you personally, right? And so we have set up a session that's coming up on the 23rd of February, where we're going to be talking about those two aspects that I've just mentioned to you now, as well as psychologically, emotionally, physically thriving, right, while running a business, and some of the aspects that we need you to consider while doing that, because there's no point in making money when you're not physically there to enjoy it. So how do we, I mean, it's not, it's like the children's books, it's not necessarily the blueprint, but at least a conversation started to get entrepreneurs thinking just a little bit further than, the businesses and the babies that they're nurturing.
I like that, because you're beginning to introduce a growth mindset. Not just you focusing on me getting in money to buy food, to pay fees and whatever, but just to think more broadly. And if you're an entrepreneur, the issue here is that you are not earning a fixed salary like someone who's fully employed. Your employer is not contributing anything. Employers contribute towards our retirement funds, and we can. But if you're an entrepreneur, you're on your own. So I guess entrepreneurs will benefit a lot, because then they'll be able to start investing and preparing themselves for retirement. Because you don't want to be an entrepreneur even when you are no longer able to do that because you were unable to prepare adequately for retirement. I mean, I am on retirement, and I must say that, you know, I fully now understand what it means, you know, to prepare adequately, and I'd like to advise as many people as possible, not advise, but just to recommend to them to talk to you or to anyone for that matter, you know, just to make sure that they are preparing enough for such a time as this, because the time is coming. And you know what I like? People always say, I'm still young, or my business is too small. I'm only making 5,000. What must I invest with this money? You know, but I think it's important that we start with a little that you have, and then you grow it and you take it to greater heights.
And the misconception with running a business is that it needs to be a huge corporation before you can set up things like employee benefits, pension fund, risk and things. You can start it with a one-person business. You know, there's certain institutions that we work with that can assist you depending on the numbers that we're working with in terms of income and cash flow. But you can set up a pension fund and employee benefits with just 1 or 2 employees in your business, in your practice. So people mustn't limit themselves because they're thinking that they're running a small shop. You know, these are important conversations to have.
Yeah, and you professionalize, you know, when you do that and you start with 1 or 2, and as you grow, you know, I was speaking to some entrepreneurs at a function somewhere, and I said to them, as an entrepreneur, don't think you need to know everything. Get people who already have the know-how to come and help you, even if it's a small enterprise. You know, there are so many graduates out there that are still looking for employment, that are skilled in the areas that you are not skilled in. Approach them and say to them, look, I'd like you to be my board of advisors. You know, I don't have money now, but on a voluntarism thing, those that are great in HR, in risk, in whatever, then they come, they meet with you once a quarter, they give you, you know, they tell you how you should be running things, and that's how you learn. So I just want to say, you know, as well, that it's never, you know, you must never despise your small beginnings and things. Re1, Re2, that's a UIF for 2 people.
There's magic in that.
And there's magic in that, right?
And that's the point again of this event that we're having is to create a community, because you quite rightly said we can't operate solo and we don't know everything. So we're trying to introduce the people who'll be in attendance to everybody else so that they can create a community and leverage off each other's skills.
Awesome. Okay. I wish you all of the best with that. I will be at the launch, so I'll come back here and give them the lowdown, and probably we can come back at another time just to build on today's conversation. So maybe let's then talk about financial planning. You know, we always say to people, no, you must have a good, solid financial plan. And people don't know what we are talking about, okay? And they don't even know how to put together a financial plan. What are the components? What must be in there? Do you list your assets? What do you do in there? Are you able to just share with us, if I'm putting together a financial plan, how do I do that? What should be in there?
Let's talk about the process of financial planning. So it's understanding where you are and trying to understand where you're trying to get to, and then the in-between is the how, which involves the plan, right? In a nutshell, in its most simplistic terms, that's what it is. Where you are, where you're trying to get to, and the in-between. A plan is a document that speaks to that, and every institution works differently, but I think the basics that should be incorporated in a financial plan, for example, is a spending plan, cash flow, or a budget. So first, that's the bare minimum. Understanding what's coming in, what's coming out. For a lot of people that we assist in terms of their personal finances, they know exactly what's coming in, but they don't know where this money goes. And it's always the little amounts that people are not aware of. And those are the things that actually make or break you in terms of your financial success. So start with a spending plan. So if you're going to do this on your own, there's templates online on how to put together a budget. And that information is free, so get your budget done. And if you don't want to do a budget, again, you can just look at your statements for the last couple of months just to get a trend of where your money's going. So that's crucial, because once you understand your cash flow and have an understanding of where your money is going, you then understand what's possible. You know, are you then able to save? Are you able to get the adequate investments? You know, so it's important to start with what are the ins and outs of your money. In our business, we do what's called estate planning. So in the estate planning. So in the event of you passing away, what does that picture look like? There's a financial implication to dying, and that's what a lot of people are not aware of. There's costs and taxes that are due and payable when you die. And a lot of people don't care because they're not going to be there. But if you have people that you love and care for, it does matter what those costs and taxes are before you die. And so it's important to speak to a professional who can give you an idea of what that looks like. It's important for you to have a will, for example. Again, people don't care because they're not going to be there, but if you've got children, if you've got people that you're financially responsible for, it's the right thing to do to have a document that speaks to how, what needs to happen with your assets and the things that you've got.
And maybe before you continue, I mean, a lot of people say, why should I have a will? I don't have enough money. I'm single. I haven't bought assets. If I do, they're not that significant. So what will I put in my will? And if you're contributing to a pension fund or a provident fund and you've got live things at work, it's important therefore that you have a will, because somebody needs to deal with the money post you not being here. So it does matter. It does matter whether you are here or you're no longer here, and the impact on those that are left behind. Because then you die interstate, right? And then the state decides what to do with your assets.
That's it. And you know, death is traumatic enough. You know, we're already dealing with you not being here, and now people must sit here and figure out what would you have wanted to do with a car that you thought was insignificant. You know, what did you want to do with your clothes? All of those things matter. They may seem like small detail to you, but the people who are left behind are then left with the admin on top of the trauma of losing you. It's just an unfair thing to do. And considering that wills are so cheap to have, cheap to almost free, depending on the institution that you use. So it's important for you to get your will done. It doesn't cost you anything, it doesn't take a lot of time. So that's the second aspect of a financial plan, is the estate planning bit. The third aspect of it is the risk management stuff. So risk management in simple terms is what could go wrong. And you know, with life, a lot can go wrong. But obviously we don't try to mitigate all of the potential risks, but the ones that could devastate you really, really badly, and we try to manage those as much as possible in the event of you getting sick. So for example, you earn an income, your income is your most important, your ability to generate income is your biggest resource, so it needs to be protected. So you need critical illness cover, for example, in the event that you're severely ill. You need disability cover, for example, in the event that you can't work or do the function that you're educated to do. What happens when you lose your job altogether? You know, there's something that you need to do in order to make sure that you're protected in that regard. What happens when you pass away? If there are people that you are financially responsible for, whether it's extended family, whether it's children, spouses, you know, it's important to think about those things. So that's what we do with the risk management element of it. It incorporates savings, but it's mostly insurance based. And then finally, which is why people come to us in the first place, is whenever people knock on our door, 9 times out of 10 is, I want to invest. So that's the investment, both pre and post retirement investment planning and investing that we do. So we do the asset allocation. So for example, assessing where you are in your life, what you need to in order to get to where you want to get to, and therefore start putting together a suite of products for you, and that are going to be invested in a specific way in order to allow you the growth to get you to where you need to get to. But that's like step 4. You know, we first need to make sure there's money.
Step 1
is
there,
the
money,
budget,
and
where's
the
it going?
spending
Yes.
plan.
Yes.
You know, I love it, because every time we are on this, I have guests, it starts there. And I think it's important, and there are people who viewers who watch this podcast religiously, and those that are joining in, to understand that your budget is the beginning, it's the foundation. Because if you don't know how much is going out, you are already in trouble. You know, so all these things that we are talking about will become very difficult to achieve, because you have no control of what's happening with your finances. So there you have it, people. That's what a financial plan would look like under general. And maybe the next question to ask is, how often should one then revisit their financial plan? just to make sure that they're still adequately maybe investing or they're on the right track. I mean, the economy goes up and down, things happen, we had COVID, there's all kinds of things, just to make sure that, you know, I'm still on track. How often should one maybe revisit? Because, you know, I don't think it's great to have it at once and then you go away and you think, I'm done, I've got a plan, I've done everything.
But in terms of regulation, if you've got a client who sees a financial advisor, there needs to be a review process at least annually. Sometimes people don't think that's important. So I always liken what we do to the medical fraternity or the medical field. You should be getting your medicals every year, right? Because a lot can happen in a year. So you need to be getting your checkups, especially for women. It's a mammogram, it's this, it's that. All of those are recommended at least annually. And there's a reason for that, is that so much can change in that year. And so we can preempt a lot of issues by checking you on an annual basis. And the same goes for your personal finances. But with personal finance, I think it's twofold, as with the medical fraternity, in that it's either annually or as and when your life changes. So are you changing jobs? Is there a death? Is there a birth? Is there a wedding? Is there whatever transition that you may be going through at that point in time necessitates you seeing somebody? Because the thing about transitions is that it's an emotional period most of the time, and then you have a high probability of making very bad financial decisions. So speak to somebody as and when your life changes, or at least annually. Okay.
Even when you're changing a job, it's important that before you make those decisions, I'm taking my money, I'm still young, I'm going to spend it, so I'll start again.
Yes, I've done it, we've all done it, and we all know it's a bad idea. So yes.
Yeah, okay. And then maybe just to bring it home, I mean, how important is it to start investing for retirement? When should one start investing for retirement in order for them to retire comfortably? You know, people assume more on retirement, everything is good, but it depends on when you started, how you invested and what you invested in. I mean, I was also doing some research and I got such a shock. One of the companies was saying that, you know, in the research that they did, they found that out of every 10 people going on retirement, only 2 had adequately saved, which they can live a comfortable life. The other 8 would have to continue working, even if they didn't want to work, or they would have to maybe depend on a government pension or on their children. Because can you imagine having to call your children every month and they no longer take your calls because they know when you call, this is what you're
money
to us.
That's it. It's a very scary statistic. And I think if you put it in percentage terms, it makes even more sense. If we say 96% of the people in retirement can't afford to retire.
Yes.
That's scary. Only 4% are fully self-sustaining. It's scary. And when you look at a country like ours, that is just not supposed to be happening. But yes, the reason why it's recommended that you start as early as possible to invest is so that your money can work for you. Because the real magic with investing is the time. Right? The earlier you start, the less money you have to come up with yourself from your own pocket. Right. That's the magic with investing. And I think that's the trick that a lot of people miss. And so often I speak to people who are like, no, I'll start later when I'm like 40, because then they have like an idea of the number, I'll have enough money then. But the problem is, the later you start, the more of your own money you have to then come up with, and you don't want to do that.
To augment.
Exactly. Exactly. Ultimately, what you want to do is spend as much as you possibly can, so invest as little as possible. And then over time, that investment grows, because what the market does, it rewards you for that time that you're spending, investing and buying assets. It's going to come back to you. So as early as possible. So with your first paycheck is a recommendation. So people start working these days 22, 23. So as early as then, a portion of your money should be allocated towards your investing, and it only needs to be as little as 10%, which is manageable. Because the older you get, the more of your income needs to be dedicated to retirement savings. And I used to be that 20-year-old who used to think, oh my goodness, 60 is so far. But it comes at you so quickly. Now that I'm here, I'm like 60 is around the corner, but I never thought about it then. You know, so, and the number is I think if you start investing in your 20s, yes, it's 10%. If you start investing in your 30s, I think the number is about 20% of your income needs to be dedicated to retirement savings. If you start in your 40s, almost half of your income must go towards it. And that's not practical. Because we've got so many competing priorities for our money. You can't, it's not practical to allocate 50% of it to your retirement savings. So the sooner you start, the better.
The better, yeah. I saw in that research that I was looking at, they were also saying that if you take someone that has started at age 20 at 10%, and someone that starts at age 30 at 20%, the one that starts at 30 at 20% will never catch up with the one who started at 20 at 10% because of the power of compounding interest. And a lot of people don't understand how this compound interest works, and they think, if I start at 40 and I give 50%, I'll catch up with them because I'll be contributing much more than because really compound interest is just interest on interest on interest.
And you can't buy that.
You can't buy that, right? Yeah. Okay. I don't know if there's anything else that you'd like to share around the financial planning piece that you believe is very important for, those that are viewing, before we go into the last question that I have.
I just wanted to say that, personal finance is personal. We often see the mistake of people going to, we spoke about it earlier, platforms like social media, for example, where somebody says, buy the share, it's worked for me, or do this, it's worked for me. It's such a dangerous thing to do because you don't know what that person's circumstances are, and why that particular piece of advice works for them. It's okay to troll social media sites and the internet to get information, but never apply that to yourself because you need your own diagnosis when it comes to matters of personal finance because they are personal. And I've seen so many people get into so much trouble with their money, lose money because they've taken what applies to somebody else and made it about them.
Yeah, okay. And then I just want us to touch on something, this pot. There's this new Pensions Act amendment that's going to come into play sometime this year or later in the year. It's called the TwoPort System. Just as an overview, just to empower those that are watching. What is the TwoPort System? Why is it coming, into play, and how is it going to affect people who are going on retirement, and how is it going to benefit those that are still employed?
So how it came about is, we've spoken about that 96% problem. Only 4% of people are self-sustaining in retirement. So the government knows that there's an issue in the country that needs to be resolved. And a big part of the reason why we're there is because the leakages at various points. So when people retire, when people resign, and when they retire, they cash out because the money is available to you based on current regulation. There's certain amounts of money that you can take. In certain instances, you can take all of it in cash, subject to tax. Yes, when you resign. When you resign. You can take all your money, and depending on the pension fund that you're part of, at retirement, if it's a provident fund back in the day, you could take all of that money subject to tax. And we know what people do with that money. We don't need to regurgitate it. They hardly invest that money. It goes towards spending and whatever else that they do with it. And then people get to retirement and then they have that problem. And so now there's a need to reform how current regulation is when it comes to retirement funds, which is how the TwoPort system came into effect. And all it is your money is now going to be... And by the way, another big issue is people resign just to access their pension, but not because they're changing jobs or whatever the case is. Some people actually physically quit their jobs just so they can access their retirement money, which is a very scary thing. And so government has come up with this regulation. Now it's not yet enforced, but to split your retirement savings into two, 1/3 and 2/3. The 1/3 would be available to you in cash while you are working, subject to certain rules and regulations. So you must have built it up to a certain point and you can access it on an annual basis. Those numbers I think are still, I think they're almost solidified, but we won't get into that specific yet. The other 2/3 you can't touch. Doesn't matter what's happening, whether you're resigning, whether you get to that money is fixed and it's going to stay invested for your retirement. In a nutshell, that's what it is. So the when, I know that it was supposed to be in effect now. I'm not sure if that's still the case on the 1st of March with the start of the new financial year. But there are a lot of things that need... This is February. Yes, it's February. So, but a lot of things still need to change. I mean, the systems as they are at the moment are not built for that.
Yeah.
So I think there may be a bit of a pushback in terms of the starting date.
Yeah, because I think it's so important that we educate ourselves and empower ourselves around the TwoPort system. And even though it's not yet finalized, I'd like to just say, look out for it, read the papers, read the government gazettes. I'm sure they have to gazette things.
They do. And there's one last point I forgot to make is that it doesn't affect existing retirement savings. So it's only for new contributions going forward.
Okay.
So anything that you've built up until this point, the old regulation remains.
Oh, the old regulation remains
correct.
On the old. Correct. So if I go on retirement, then I will still be able to take 500,000 tax-free or a third.
Correct.
Oh,
correct.
Okay, then
Existing,
I can relax.
You can relax.
Okay, and many other people can relax, because I think this is what was bothering a few people to say, hey, but when I go on retirement, it means I will not be able to access the third, or I won't be able to access the 500,000. Everything will just be paid out.
That's as things stand.
Okay, cool. As things stand, yes. Don't hold us to it. It's as things stand. It might change. That's why it's so important that people must continue looking out and reading and watch the space so that we can be empowered enough. Wow. Well, we've come to the end of our session. I want to believe that I've gained a lot. And as we were chatting, I was really thinking a lot, reviewing some of the decisions that I've made and thinking around the risk and all of that. And you'll probably come visit here as well. These offices, by the way, they are here in Sandton in some lovely offices. So, just to go and think back, because when you hear, financial empowerment, you have to pause and reflect and introspect and look at what your finances are looking like. Where are you? What is it that you need to adjust? I always say to people, it's never too late to adjust. It's never too late to put in place the right things. If you've never had a financial plan, this is the time. Now that you've heard this is the time for you to do it, and to do it right, and to choose right. Choose the person that is empowered to do that for you. So usually when we end our podcast, I always ask my guests to share a nugget of wisdom, to scatter a seed of wisdom. The one thing that even when they are sleeping, they remember, Gugu said this one I'm holding on to. Just a nugget which they must remember you by, that's got to do with finances.
Maybe I can use our payoff line. It's nurturing legacies from seed to tree. We all know that growing a tree doesn't happen overnight, and it's the same with your investments. It's something that needs to be nurtured, and as early as possible, depending on when you're trying to harvest or when you're trying to enjoy the shade. So the earlier you start, nurture that seed so that you can grow to the tree that you need in the future.
You know what I love? My company is from seeds to forests.
I didn't know that.
Great minds think alike. Wow, yes. No, thank you so much, Gugu, for that. And there you have it, people. You've heard, everything about financial planning. I hope that you definitely will do something. And so before I go, again, please click on that bell. There's a little bell somewhere there. Click on it and you're already subscribed, and click on the like and share. I think that there's so many people that would grow, that would improve their lives if they hear this information that we've shared today. Until next time, thank you for watching.